Hi, and welcome to Deep Dive Movie Reviews with myself, James Marsh, and my friend Steve Hackman. Today, we are talking West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's brand spanking new adaptation of the Leonard Bernstein Stephen Sondheim musical.
Hey, and before we get going, you know the drill. Come on, we need subscribers. We're at 33 as of this recording, and we have a goal of 100,000. So that means we only need 99,667.
No, you screwed that up. 960.
Math.
We need a lot of subscribers. We need a lot of subscribers.
So go ahead, hit that subscription button, ding that bell, and drop us a comment in the comment section below. We'd love to hear from you. James, let's talk West Side Story.
Okay, so for those of you out there who don't know the setup of West Side Story, it's New York City, it's the late 50s, massive urban redevelopment is going on in the West Side, and I think this is right on the location where the Lincoln Center will ultimately be, which obviously to New Yorkers, particularly New Yorkers in the arts, this is a very important part of town. But before it was all of that, it was a very sort of hotly disputed neighborhood between the white locals, if you like, Irish, Polish guys, and then the incoming families and communities from particularly Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And this manifests in, and it's no secret that this is an adaptation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. It manifests as a turf war between the Jets and the Sharks, and in the midst of which what's his name? Tony, played by Ansel Elgort, falls madly in love with a young girl called Maria, played by Rachel Zegler, who happened to be from opposing gangs.
It always happens, Romeo and Juliet. Last week, James, I kicked it off, and even though you introduced the synopsis a little bit, give me your initial thoughts. You go first today.
Okay, sure. All right. So yeah, West Side Story, it comes with a lot of baggage. Mm-hmm. It was a big Broadway musical. There was a 1961 Robert Wise movie adaptation that won 10 Oscars, I think, something like that. And for a long time, that's West Side Story. I don't think I know for a fact I've never seen it on stage, and I've seen the Robert Wise movie 2 or 3 times, I think, and it's one of those sort of quintessential musicals. So when Steven Spielberg announced that he wanted to do an adaptation of it, I was like, really? It's one of the ones, because it's a period piece, I think, because it doesn't involve any kind of technology or anything like that. Not really. It's kind of timeless,
right?
Or rather, it's a bubble. It's a very specific part of time, but it ages beautifully. And so he announced he was going to do it, and it's his first ever musical. And I was like, I wonder at this late stage in his career, what compels him to do something like this? Maybe it's that. Maybe it's the fact that I've never done a musical before, and this is my favorite. So let's see if I can break it. Who knows? Anyway, I think ultimately he hasn't broken it. Mm-hmm. I think he's done a very polished, serviceable adaptation. I think it at its best moments, it enables to inject some elements into the story that were always there, but were implied rather than explored overtly. Sure. In like the original one. He makes the quote unquote daring decision of having a lot of the Puerto Rican characters speak to one another, at least part of the time, in Spanish, unsubtitled. And it's like, okay, that's the conversation we can have. And then there are other elements. I mean, one scene in particular that really sort of jumped out at me is where there is almost a rape. Mm-hmm. There is a moment where it's Anita, isn't it? Where she comes over to the Jets
cafe,
cafe, and she tries to confront them, and they kick all the other girls out, and there's about 20 guys surrounding her, and the girls are banging on the window going, "Don't do this," and you're like, "Whoa, I don't remember this bit," but I think it's a moment that works incredibly well, and I think it illustrates Spielberg's willingness to explore and to develop these relationships in ways that you can't argue that they're unrealistic or they're not earned. Mm-hmm. These are the more horrible realities of this kind of rivalry that the 1961 version could not hope to have put on screen, even if they'd wanted to. I don't know the musical well enough. I understand that one or two of the songs have been moved around in different places. I don't know the musical well enough to know exactly, to have recognized that. And by and large, I thought that the performances are good. I have some specific quibbles, and if I'm honest, it's about the two leads, because they're fine. And I think the problem with characters in this kind of story is they're never the most interesting characters.
Yes.
They're kind of the squeaky clean ones who see the right thing, and love is more important to them than anything else. And it makes them a little bit bland by doing that. I think Rachel Zegler in particular is great, because she's new. And so it's important to recognize that she holds her own in an accomplished cast. But the highlights are definitely a couple of the key support characters.
No, absolutely. I'm a big musical theater guy myself. I love musical theater. Whenever
big jazz hands.
Yeah, jazz hands. Whenever I get to London, I see a show. When one comes through Hong Kong, I see it. And so I'm a regular listener of musical. I've got a Spotify playlist of show tunes. But West Side Story has never been something that particularly interested me. And filmed musicals, by and large, don't ever quite work for me. I love Jersey Boys on stage. Fantastic show. Jersey Boys, the film, Les Miserables, my favorites of all time. And there's been cinematic versions of Les Miserables with like Liam Neeson that I thought did wonderfully. But when they tried to do the musical version, film the musical version, it was hit or miss. And often you are getting A-list actors. In the case of Les Miserables, you get Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe, who are fantastic actors and decent singers, but are not musical theater folk by and large. Probably Hugh Jackman a bit more than Russell Crowe. But you never, if I'm going to go see Les Miserables, I'm going to go see it in London and New York, or I'm going to see it when it tours through. I'm not going to throw Hugh Jackman on my TV. If I'm going to see West Side Story, I'm not going to watch whether the 61 version or the 2021 version. To me, they never achieve the level of what they set out to do. In fact, I would have recommended they do, because I think in hindsight, this movie has not broken any box office records. It's been pretty much a bomb. Is I would have done what they've done, it has become quite popular in the States, is get NBC or ABC or one of the big networks to, on a holiday night, do a live performance of this. And I think then you capture the energy of a live performance, and you get actors that are musical theater actors that can really, when I go in to see a show, that music, the live music, you get adrenaline pumping through you. And the Kishi dialogue, which West Side Story is full of. Musical theater has that to begin with. You have to kind of leave a certain element of your brain at the door. There's going to be musical theater dialogue. But when you're watching it on film, it grates on me, because now I'm watching a film and I have a different expectation for film than I have for musical theater. So when they're like, hey, Jimmy, are we a shark? Hey, Inspector, oh, are we going to rumble today? Oh, those guys are messing in on our turf. I just find myself going, oh, is this really 2.5 hours? This is killing me. So, Steven Spielberg, nobody's going to come out of a Steven Spielberg movie and say, well, he really screwed that up. No, he's a great filmmaker. He does some great work with this film. It's certainly not a bad film. It's a Steven Spielberg version of West Side Story. It's going to be a decent film. Having said that, I'm not particularly interested in the story it has to tell. And I don't like the tonal differences. The first half of the movie is almost a little shticky, with them kind of dancing, fighting. Like, we're going to do, and we're going to have like a little, but it's not serious. And then it gets really serious, like rape and murder, and then just weird things where, Tony kills Bernardo, Maria's brother. She's angry for about 10 seconds and then hops in bed with Tony. I mean,
Yeah.
He just killed your brother. It's that kind of thing that has me, when I'm watching this, going, I check out of this. I have no emotional, I know that I'm supposed to be feeling emotion, but this is so unreal that I can't connect with it.
Yeah, no, I think you struck on something really good there that I really agree with, which is that it's the lack of emotional connection to the material. I mean, I love Romeo and Juliet. Don't get me wrong. Shakespeare. I'm a big Shakespeare,
yes,
Shakespeare nerd. Not a big musical person. I totally agree with you that the best place to see a musical is live on stage. That suspension of disbelief when people suddenly break into song suddenly makes more sense. Because it has blurred that line between am I watching a musical performance or am I watching a stage show?
They're not actually on a street. They have a backdrop of a street.
Yeah.
It's a whole different motif that sets your expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a heightened theatrical reality. It's not, if someone's walking down the street, then that's, whether it's on film, whether it's a sound stage or whatever, they're walking down the street. And the fact that they would suddenly break into song and dance, I always have struggled to swallow that a little bit. But yeah, and also like you say, Steven Spielberg is you're never gonna come out of Steven Spielberg film and say that was poorly made. Maybe once or twice, maybe, but as a general rule, he is incredibly technically proficient and adventurous. And he's got people like Janusz Kaminski who shot the film, who has shot so many of his films. So he's managed to turn West Side Story into a movie that looks like a Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
It has those great sort of Spielberg movies always have the like beams of light coming into frame, and you have no idea where they're coming from. And it's just part of his
the E.T. poltergeist close encounters. He set that whole
Jurassic Park. It's always again and again and again he uses these sort of light techniques, and you see that again here in West Side Story. But it's so technically proficient, it's so polished to the point that it's pretty impregnable, I think. And so it holds you at arm's length and goes, look at what I'm doing. It's so meticulously shot, meticulously choreographed. Even in its moments of experimentation, it feels very much part of an enclosed whole, and it's very difficult to feel anything.
Right.
And I think that's the problem. You can recognize the songs and go, oh, hey, yeah, Maria. I think I Want to Live in America is the best song. That's a song that I feel like I've always known that song. And Officer Krupke as well, because I just think as a kid, that's one that sticks in your head, even though actually what it's about is police brutality and all kinds of things. And it's not really a very nice song. So there's that. I mean, you're constantly wrestling with that because it's one of those shows where, as I said, for me at least, I felt I've always known it. I can't remember when I first watched it.
It's part of the zeitgeist of America cinema, not just cinema, but theater. We've all heard tonight. It's always been there.
And then it falls into that trap that I think too many films are falling into right now. I think we talked about this with Ghostbusters. We talked about this with Spider-Man, where and it's a problem with all the new Star Wars movies. They feel an obligation to connect this new movie, whether it's a sequel or a remake or whatever, with the old movie directly, normally through casting. And it's something they've always done. You've always had the lead in that show up as an old timer in the corner of your new version. It's like fine, but I felt, and here you've got Rita Moreno, who's I think obviously she's an absolute star. She won an Oscar for her role as Anita way back then, and she's now an EGOT winner, and I think is a producer on this as well. I think she really actually helped get it made and has been a pioneer for the Latinx community and what have you. But is her role new? And if it's not, it felt kind of crowbarred in there. This idea that Tony was of like mixed heritage, or his parents were now, or his dad was now in a mixed relationship, or whatever. And it just felt, and I can't remember if that's new or not.
Yeah, I think they amalgamated that role. That role was not in the 61 version. I think that was Doc. Admittedly, I'm not an expert on West Side Story, but I believe that was the character of Doc. and Rita Moreno, they amalgamated that character a little bit to create that character.
Yeah, and it just felt to me sort of an unnecessary. That was an unnecessary change, just purely to honor Rita Moreno. And it's like, you don't need to do that. Everybody knows who she is, and she's still around, and she's going strong even at whatever 80, whatever. And for me, that felt like a sort of just kind of a cheap shot, like a low blow. It was just.
This is where I'll push back a little.
It felt like pandering. It felt like pandering.
I'll push back a little on this, in that I thought she was one of the few characters I was actually interested in in this film. I certainly hear the reasoning that you're giving, and I've seen that in other films, Ghostbusters Afterlife, as we've mentioned, but I didn't feel that in this. I thought she brought a little gravitas to, she grounded the Tony character. I love the relationship of it being a female rather than a male. And I didn't feel, a lot of people coming into this film, unless you know West Side Story, it's been a long time since 1961. You'd need to know that was Rita Moreno and that she played Anita in 1961. Yeah. So I thought it worked. I thought that was one of the things in this film that I thought kind of worked. By and large, the film, it was hit or miss for me. But I thought, okay, that works for me. Of the things that I was critical in this film about, that wasn't one of them.
Fair enough.
Ansel Elgort is more what I've got a small beef with that one, but
go for it.
I love Ansel Elgort, Baby Driver. It goes back to what I said earlier, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. But get a musical theater. There's enough musical theater actors that are bigger names that are known, maybe not A-list as much as some of these cinema stars, but when they sing, this is what they do. Ansel Elgort does not do musical theater for a living. He's a decent singer. And the acting was, I just felt the Tony character needed to be played by a different actor. I don't think it was cast well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's not like it's a film packed with big names. If anything, it's Steven Spielberg and West Side Story are the names.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you're going to have Rachel Zegler, who's a first timer, pretty much, Ariana DeBose and Mike Feist and people like that, who I'm not familiar with. I assume they're Broadway people. Yeah. I'm not sure. Why not? Ansel Elgort doesn't really exactly bring star clout to it. So why bother?
No. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know I don't see him auditioning and them going, that's the guy. I see him auditioning and going, oh, he does okay. Yeah, okay. Next,
Well, I almost see it as them going the other way. Like they're like, who's a name who can sing and dance? Yeah. I saw the beginning of Baby Driver. He can kind of sing. No, he can kind of dance. Let's get him in because the kids love Ansel Elgort, right? It's like, do they? I don't know. Fault in Our Stars was quite a few years ago now.
Two old white guys. What do we know? What do the kids say?
What do we know? But yeah, so
I don't have a poster of him on the back of my bedroom door, so I don't.
Not anymore. He has been replaced.
Nothing's moving Rob Lowe, buddy.
Even today, even 2022, Rob Lowe. Right. Yeah. So, but like I said, I just name checked them now, but Ariana DeBose and Mike Feist, who actors I was completely unfamiliar with beforehand, they're the ones that really jump out at me. Yeah, sure, that it's the showy roles, as we've sort of said, particularly Anita, but I thought Ariana DeBose is fantastic. Mike Feist, particularly as Riff, who's like the bad influence old mate of Tony's. I thought he was great. He's weaselly and he's unlikable, and but he's everything that the character needs to be, but at the same time, he is sympathetic. You understand where he's coming from and how he's being abandoned by his friend at his time of need. And I think all of that came across. He's like the bad seed, but at the same time, he managed to give him a sort of a humanity and a sense of empathy.
And they seem to carry themselves as I would see somebody carry themselves on musical stage. They had that kind of, it's almost like stage act. Even though they're filming this, they're doing it as if they're really on the stage. Whereas Ansel Elgort, I didn't feel that same, like he's acting for a movie. A lot of his peers are doing musical theater and it's just happened to be being filmed. That was my impression.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's why I immediately thought, oh, who's that guy? He must be a Broadway guy.
Right, but yeah,
It's just like you said, the way he carries himself, the way he acts with his entire body, even when it's just a conversation. That's stage acting. It's completely different. And yes, this is a film, but in these cases, I think the stage acting actually worked.
Yeah.
But by and large, I mean, I didn't dislike the movie. That's for sure. But I kind of just came away going, sure. I mean, if you're going to remake West Side Story, I think this is fine. You've updated it in the right places, in the right way, and I guess you've addressed some of the more outdated elements and some of the more timely. You've kind of ticked the boxes of, what are people upset about today, and how can we address those things. But at the end of the day, the story is the same and the songs are the same, and you're like, sure, I know this one. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think to a degree.
Was anybody asking for this movie? Is my question.
Well, this is the thing. I don't think so, and I know that it is the 60th anniversary. It was supposed to come out last year, right?
Okay.
And that's the 60th anniversary, and it's like, okay, I guess. Why not do a new Broadway adaptation of it? Why do a new film of it? Because it's such a sort of specific, as I said, it's such a specific period piece that I think the film captures incredibly well, and it is that kind of 50s street punk slang that in 1961 you can sell way better than you can sell it today.
And did as I said, if they'd gotten Steven Spielberg, hey, we're going to do a live on Thanksgiving evening, Steven Spielberg presents live West Side Story, it would set record numbers, and then you could sell your DVDs and your streaming afterwards, rather than it being a box office bomb. I think the platform this needed to be, I don't think this needed to be a normal theatrical release, because obviously people were not yearning to see this movie, because as we've said, it's a well done version of West Side Story, and if you enjoy West Side Story, this will be something you will enjoy. But obviously not enough people are looking for a film version of West Side Story to go to the film to see right now.
And I think that there's a kind of elephant in the room, which is that this is coming. I don't think it was the original plan. Actually, maybe it was. Well, it certainly wasn't the plan. But this arrives hot on the heels of In the Heights, the film version of Lin-Manuel Miranda's, early Broadway musical that is obviously hugely influenced by West Side Story. And that turned out to be quite a hit.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of sort of young musical fans, they're like, well, I don't now need to go see a new version of West Side Story. In the Heights really updated that story for the 21st century.
It's my generation's West Side Story. With my kind of music, because it uses a lot of, if you've seen Hamilton, then you know the kind of music that Lin-Manuel Miranda writes. There's a lot of Latino music in there. There's a lot of hip hop influence in there as well. I'm not, as I said, an au fait Broadway guy, but having seen Hamilton, you watch this and you're like, oh, that's the same guy who wrote this, clearly. And that had a very cinematic sensibility to it. I think that made the transition from stage to screen pretty well, and whereas I think Spielberg's efforts to be too reverential, if you like, to the source material, you end up with something that can't break away from its original trappings and feels just like a sort of a polished new staged version of it. And it doesn't really do anything new apart from these few little things, which at the end of the day, you watch it and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I got the 61 version and I've seen it in the Heights. What are you giving me? Steven's
not enough.
Not
enough is the answer. And I don't want Steven Spielberg to be wasting his time on these kind of movies anyway.
No, I want him making some other things that I really want him to be making. So what's our final score here? What are we going to give it? I think we've exhausted what we need to say about, unless I cut you off. Do you have some
not really
insight into West Side Story that we haven't unpacked?
No, I think you're absolutely right when you said, you already know if you like West Side Story or not. I don't think this is going to change your mind.
Right.
It might scratch the itch, but I hate to say it, if you want an updated 21st century take on West Side Story, watch In the Heights.
Agreed.
So I'm going to give it. I mean, it's slick, it's competent. There are some good performances in there. I'm going to give it 3 slightly rusty fire escapes out of 5.
I'm going to do what I've done in the past, James. I'm going to split my vote a little bit. My straightforward is 2.5 stars. You don't really need to see this. There's nothing new here, and you're welcome to keep walking. Move on. But if you enjoy West Side Story, you're an aficionado, yeah, go see it. This is a well done presentation of it. And so I'm going to give it 3.5 if you're a West Side Story aficionado. That it has its hits and its misses. And I'm not a West Side Story guy, and I'm giving it 2.5 because I don't need to see this ever again.
So what is the average between 2.5 and 3.5?
3.
So, yes, 3 it is.
See, I felt weird just giving it a 3 because I thought 3 for me, 3s are you should go see it. 3 or higher. And I'm not thinking people need to go see that, hence the 2.5. But then I thought, if somebody really likes West Side Story, they really should go see this. So I'll give it 3.5, So
fair enough. Fair enough.
I know that's cheating a little bit, but hey,
not at all.
We can do what we want to do.
Exactly. And I think we've said this before with some of our reviews of big franchise movies is you already know if you're going to go see this movie or not.
Right.
Nothing we say is going to change your mind. Yeah. We're talking to the people who are on the fence, who are curious, is this something that will please them? And the answer is maybe.
I got to admit, I was not, and this clocks in at 2 hours and 36 minutes. This is 2 hours. I'm thinking tonight, I'm not getting this time back tonight.
Or maybe tomorrow morning at this rate.
Yeah. So I'm much more looking forward to some of the movies we got on the dock. So I think we've got some good ones, especially as we move into Oscar season.
Damn right. Yes, indeed.
All right. Until next week, James.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.